Evening all. How are we doing? Hopefully I'm coming through loud and clear across the airwaves. Hi Kimberly, hi Carrie C, hi Tamara, hi Tickety Boo, hi Meg Healy, hi Claire Morgan, hi JD. Hope you're all doing well. Evening Claire. So firstly, if for anyone who doesn't know, our condolences go out to Cassandra Cantrell's family. Her body was found earlier on, I think it was earlier on today or yesterday. Her body was found at the base of a cliffside, and her ex-boyfriend's been arrested on suspicion of murder. I think they've tracked him down through his GPS of his vehicle and cameras. They've caught him and his phone. They've pieced everything together, and so it sounds like he'll be going down. So I hope he rots in hell. But obviously, our thoughts and condolences go out to Cassandra's family, because obviously that isn't what the outcome that anybody wanted. As of course, as we know, as time goes on, we know it always becomes more of a worry. And I know for a lot of people, including me, he was obviously suspect number one right from the start, simply because of his relationship or former relationship with Cassandra, and the fact that he disappeared and done a runner kind of thing. I don't, it wasn't rocket science. I think they were just keeping an eye on him, just getting the information together that they needed, and that's what they've done. I will be putting a video together just to piece together how they caught him and how when Cassandra was found. But yeah, bless her baby, bless her family. It's just so sad. So as I say, I will be putting that into another video. Hi Roberta, hi Louise, hi Guernsey Gal, hi Daniel, Bashna, hi Paula, hi Meg. So yeah, you got Kimberly looking after you tonight, and Firefly should be in when she's back from work. I know she's always busy, as is everybody. So yeah, I just wanted to. It's obviously come on. I was pretty really disappointed and pretty outraged, as I think a lot of people were, that this new Netflix documentary comes out, and as we understand, it's going to be Shanann's story. Her family are all very much behind it, and Armchair, of course, as we're going to be talking about tonight, can't even give the family that. He can't even back away and crawl into his corner and let the family have this documentary, which, as I say, from what I understand, and probably for the first time in any documentary or film that's been made, it gives Shanann a voice. It's Shanann's story, and that's what a lot of people have been waiting for, and of course certainly her family would have been waiting for. But he can't even, and then you've got someone like Armchair, who can't even give the family that. He's got to come in with his typical gaslighting um, bullshit, basically. He knows it's going to upset the family, and so he's got to come in and try and pick up all the newcomers, try and pick them up and get them on his bullshit narrative train that he's built up, which I can't believe people still. Any intelligent person with half a brain must surely be able to realise now that everything, pretty much most of what comes out of his mouth, is just it's just, it's complete bullshit. I'm not gonna sit on the fence or mince my words. It is just fabricated bullshit. It's an agenda. It's an agenda to try and make everybody believe that there is somebody else or some other people involved in this tragedy, particularly the mistress, that she had involvement in this. Here we are 2 years later, still spouting off the same crap. We had Shanann's father on our channel way, way back. It was not long after Chris's sentencing, actually. Um, saying case is closed. And Shanann's family they've made it perfectly clear they don't want any more justice. Justice has been served in this case. And so what really pisses me off is when these people go on about, oh, we want justice, we want full justice for Shanann and her babies. I just find that really disrespectful, and it, it's just not right, is it, guys? It's just not right. They don't want you to search for justice for their family. They're not interested. They don't want to know. They don't want your help. So why can't you just leave them alone? Why do you have to keep trying to jump on this gravy train that you're on of trying to milk this case? And that the whole toxicity in YouTube, in our kind of bubble of true crime, the toxicity that surrounds this case is down to you. It's down to Armchair. It's down to him alone. He is the person that has caused probably 90% of this, because of the way that he has fabricated the case, the way that he has talked about and treated the families and victims involved in this case, dangling this carrot that he knows more than anybody else, that other people are going to be arrested. I don't remember how many times he said that over the months. He knows more than anybody else. Blah, blah, blah. It's all just gaslighting bullshit. That's all it is. Families aren't interested in him. I know for a fact. I speak to people close to Chris. He is not working with any family. He's not working with the Watts family. The Watts family aren't working with any YouTubers. They don't like him. He's not wanted. The one thing probably he may have is probably somebody in his group has managed to write to Chris and maybe has got a response. So they maybe got written communication going with Chris. I would say that's probably all it is. And what Chris is now going to turn around and say, oh yeah, no, it wasn't me. It wasn't me. There was other people. It wasn't me. No one's going to believe him anyway. His goose is cooked. Unfortunately, his time is over. It's done. You would have to have significant evidence in order to even look at trying to bring someone else into the picture anyway. You can't just put your hand up and say, oh, actually, yeah, it wasn't me. It was somebody else as well. They're not going to listen. So it is just gaslighting is the perfect word. It's just sticking yourself into the middle of something, making enough noise and shouting about it, and causing enough controversy that eventually you become kind of linked to the story. And it's all just for money, and it's all just for notoriety and to try and get popular. Nothing to do with justice at all. He's not interested in justice. He just wants to be right. That's the only thing he wants to be for, to be right and to be known. And that's it. And it's a shame that there are going to be an influx of new people coming into this case, and they're going to be fed this bullcrap story, that, oh, the Netflix documentary isn't, you're going to be fed this narrative of what happened, but it's not the actual real truth. It's just the truth that they want you to know. You know, Come to me and I'll show you what really happened, and I'll tell you all the things that they don't want you to know. Please, people, I appeal to you, anybody who's thinking of going to his channel or listening to what he says, please just rethink. If you go, take everything he says with a pinch of salt, because it is all just, majority of it is just lies. It was a stretch. It's a massive stretch of the truth. I've gone through this whole case again. I've read the discovery. I've read the Chris's prison interview. I've even, for my sins, read letters from Christopher. And to me, this case is so blaringly obvious and simple. It's simply a case of Chris got caught up in an affair. He wanted to start a new life. He wasn't happy in his marriage for whatever reason. And then his mind went to shit. And he destroyed his family. And no one's ever going to be able to make any sense of that. Because that's not an act of normal humanity, is it? That's an act of evil. But shit happens. These men do kill their family. He's not the first, and he's not going to be the last, unfortunately. There are many, many. Chris Coleman, Michael Wayne Jones Jr., recent ones that have killed their family, and they don't need other people to help them. In fact, I can't think of a case where somebody has helped a perpetrator to kill their family. Correct me if I'm wrong. And he's even got the audacity to say that Shanann's family are only doing this because, they're probably getting paid for it, and they've been talking to Netflix all this time. Who cares? It's their family. They can do what they want regards this case or whatever is produced in this case. It's their family. It's their children. It's their sisters. It's their grandchildren. How can anyone begrudge them having any input into this documentary film or taking money for it? It's their family. It's their tragedy. So I think it's extremely galling when people begrudge them that or say that they're wrong in doing that or they shouldn't be doing that. So the reason this whole case has gathered this ball of toxicity is because of people like Armchair who create all of this bullcrap of conspiracy and lies and thought that it's conspiracy of a cover up and there's corruption at high levels. And this is some guy sitting in a bedsit in the UK. And you people in America fall for it. I really don't understand that. And you let him put down your law enforcement. FBI, CBI, people that were actually there. Has he ever actually, took a witness statement from anybody in this case? Has he ever actually sat down and looked anyone involved in this case in the eye and seen how they react when he's talking to them? Has he ever seen any actual law enforcement official files in this case that aren't in the public discovery? Has he actually ever been to Colorado? Has he ever actually been out to that oil site? Of course he hasn't. And then you've got the people that were actually there, the people that have suffered because of this, have had to give up their career, or they've got PTSD, people that had to recover those poor children from those tanks and recover Shanann's remains, people that are really suffering from that case. And then he's sat over here in the UK preaching that he knows more and they got it all wrong and he's better than them. I mean, it's just that I really don't understand people why there aren't more people, more creators that that will stand up with us and say, look, this is wrong. It's like nobody wants to do it. It's like everybody knows it's wrong, but there's only a select few of us that are standing up and saying, look, this shouldn't be allowed. This is not right. I mean, talking specifically about AD, right, I've just created a little list, right, of all the things that I can remember that have been fabricated in this case. Okay, so it started off, as I say, we started back in 2019. I think it was around March. So probably what, 18 months ago. And he started on trying to get people to think that he was an MI5 agent. And he was all serious. And then of course we had the insider come into it. Of course, as we know now, it's Dr. B. She was advertised as a psychiatrist. She was advertised to everybody as someone who had access to Chris Watts' medical records. I don't know if people remember. I remember him doing the live all serious and smart, with his best white shirt on, saying that he had Tammy in his chat and the governor of the prison and all that. It was all serious. There's absolutely no doubt about it. That was portrayed across to everybody as serious. Okay. And this is someone who's talking about a case of a family murder, and he knows that he is bullshitting people basically. He knows this person, this Dr. B, he knows it isn't. She isn't, or she certainly, I hope she didn't lie to him. She hasn't got access to any of his files and everything like that. We all knew it would break HIPAA code and it wouldn't be done. It's totally immoral for anybody to do that who works in the medical field anyway. But that's how it was all portrayed. And then, of course, it was all told that it was a joke. Then we had the petition. I don't know if some people might not remember this, but of course they put out that petition about the photos on the wall, which quite frankly, none of their business anyway, nobody's business. But they put out this petition, not thinking that doing that they would have to remove everybody's pictures of anybody who committed that similar crime. You're talking hundreds. But that was put out there. It was then pulled down. That was pulled down by her sister, Dr. B's sister. I can tell you that. It was her that pulled it down. We were friends at the time, with Bam Bam. She went into her live. She stopped the petition because we were making him aware of what Armchair was like. For whatever reason, it then got restarted and then tried to make out that her account had been hacked, which was complete bullshit again. She stopped it. Anyway, by the by, that petition didn't work anyway. His pictures are still up on the wall. I don't think it's any of their business anyway, whether Chris has got pictures of his family on his wall. Really, that should be more down to families, to be honest, in my opinion. And then, of course, we had just going through. So we got this red car and the ponytail and all that stuff, right? So okay, so we're all told, it wasn't Betty leaving because it was a red car, or when Betty came out, she turned left. If it was a car that had come out, they would have to take a hard right and then a hard left to get onto, I forget the number, is it Steeple Rock Road or whatever, road opposite on this picture on the right. Right, does anyone drive here? Can anyone tell me, looking at that picture, right, that's Betty's driveway. If you had to go on that road to the right there, straight ahead, would you take a full right and then a full left? Or would you probably take like a angle and just go straight across? Because everybody's been told that they've got to believe that they would take a hard right and then a hard left. Thank you, Paula. You would go straight across, wouldn't it? I mean, I've been driving for years. You would just go at a slight angle, and then you would probably what, 2 o'clock, you would just go straight across that road, wouldn't you? This is the kind of stupidity that this man preaches, though. I really, he would say, well, if it was a car, they would have turned right and you would have seen the headlights on the CCTV. That's all bollocks. Absolute bollocks. Anyone stop for 5 seconds to look at that picture, you can see that is the exact trajectory that Betty took, and that matches up perfectly to the CCTV that you see. So I really don't understand why people think that's wrong. Then, of course, we had the CCTV desperate to try and show that there's somebody else on that CCTV, right? That another person walks out. If you actually read Chris's second confession, if any of you have read Letters from Christopher, the way that he describes what happened, how he did it, everything correlates and matches up to that CCTV. Why would he tell such a horrendous story of what he did to Shanann and those kids? Why would he make that up? He's not going to make that up. There was only ever him on that CCTV. Desperately, people have tried to say there's more, there's others. Where would they go anyway? If somebody else came out of that house and seen, where are they going and where are they walking to? Armchair's tried to have her sat in the truck with a phone on because there's lights there. She's tried to have her walking, obviously, down the drive. You've got to think, people, where would these people go? And people say about NK's phone pinging in the morning at 6, whatever it was, 6:16. Don't forget, Chris would have been well on his way to the oil site by then. This is 2020, right? Well, that was okay. That was 2018, but they have everybody. They have phones, have GPS. They got all of Nicole or NK's phone data. They got the complete. They got the whole shebang, everything, where her phone was at every single moment, exactly which tower it went off at what time, as they've done recently in the Chad Daybell Laurie Vallow case and others. They can pinpoint exactly where somebody is. I mean, if she didn't want to be seen or known, she ain't gonna ring Jim at 6:16 a.m., is she, from Frederick? Think about it. Why would she do that if she didn't want to be seen in Frederick? She ain't gonna ring someone. I just wish people would just use their brains. They got the whole shebang. If you listen to Kobach's interview with her, they told her, we're going to get your GPS data of your phone. Yes, she deleted text, but they know that she knows they got them all, and you can't hide stuff. Even phone companies keep records of your texts. Betsy B, you're right. It's deep dive. It's a digital trace. They get everything, and it shows them exactly where your phone was at a particular time, which cell tower it pinged off, which side of that cell tower it pinged off. All they're showing in the discovery is a phone bill. That's it. I mean, do you seriously not think they looked at that 6:16 and thought, oh, that's a bit odd? She's obviously got an alibi for it. They obviously know exactly where she was and where her phone was. But of course, to get around all this, of course, now it's got to be everybody went out the back, right? Everyone out the back because, nobody can see there. And of course, we've got no footage of that. I mean, we've heard that there's 4 people in the basement. We've heard that people were taken out the back. Thank you, Julie. We've heard that people were taken out the back. Apparently, there's an image of tyre tracks out the back, which I think is an image from months ago. It's not even a recent image. I mean, when you start making up things that aren't even on the camera or theories, then you're just going into la la land, aren't you? You could then start saying aliens came down and took them. Nate's cameras, bang, right out the front. Nobody else turned up apart from Nicole when she dropped Shanann off. The next entry he had on his system was Chris. There's nothing else. That's a camera. That's digital evidence. There's nothing there. There's nobody there. Nobody went near that house. Shanann went into that house alive. 148. They didn't see her come out. The only place she could have gone, like they said, was his truck. And then that truck, they talk about no evidence. His truck, they trace it to the oil site. The bodies are found at the oil site. I mean, what more proof and evidence do you need? They took trace lifts from the truck. They say the truck wasn't searched. Yes, it was. They took the driver's seat cover. They took trace lifts from the centre console and the back seats. If anyone doesn't know what it is, it's special tape which they lay down, which pulls up. You can pull up hairs, DNA, skin, everything. Everything. The truck was obviously taken into a special place to be analysed. We didn't see any of that. There's so much in the discovery that you don't see, but they don't have to reveal it all, and they don't always reveal it all. Thank you, Ivor. And they won't show you anything about NK because she wasn't ever a suspect, ever. She was a witness. I know it's unpopular with a lot of people, but she was a witness, and she was given victim support. It's all there in the interviews. They offered her victim support paid for by the state. Unfortunately, a lot of people aren't going to like that, but that's what happened. A few days after it happened, she voluntarily went in to speak to FBI. She met up with them. Yeah, maybe she did know she was going to lose her job, and that's why she did it. But she still went to see him. Do you really think she would have done that? She would have disappeared. She was phoning Chris the next day or the day it happened. Do you really think she would have done that? If she didn't want, she would have gone. She would have been across the state somewhere. Of course, she's interwoven and all part of the discovery and everything. She was having an affair with a bloke. She's having an intimate, close affair with him. Of course, she's going to be interwoven into the story, and it's just going to be dodgy looking behaviour going on. And yeah, it is very immoral. She's morally bankrupt, right, in what she did. But it's not a crime. You have people really do need to start looking at why they're so intent on having this woman prosecuted, because I think that is a lot of where the problem lies. Why does there have to be a woman involved? Why does there have to be anyone else involved? Why has it got to be her? People just seem to have this hatred for her. Yeah, she may not be the nicest person in the world, but whatever. She's never going to be prosecuted. She was never a suspect. She's always been a witness. It ain't ever going to happen. They've given her witness protection. Well, I'm not sure about witness protection. They give her victim support and all of that stuff. They certainly helped her get away and hide. That's why you don't see anything of her. They wouldn't have done all that if they didn't think, if they thought for a second that she had anything to do with it. It's really getting quite tiring and old. This story that she's going to be somehow pulled into it. Never going to happen. Even Chris called her a victim. So yeah, we've had the child in the arms shadow, which was all photoshopped, and then that all got pulled down. And now you got Armchair saying no one died in the house, no one died in the truck. He had a guy on. He had on one of his shows. He had a dog handler on there. I can't remember his name. It was Jeff somebody, and the dog handler. Thank you, JD. The dog handler said, yes, it's possible if somebody is wrapped up in a sheet. As soon as they've passed, if somebody is, and I hate to talk about this, but I've got to try and get it across to people. If somebody is is murdered, wrapped in a sheet, and then taken straight out of the house or the crime scene, there's a high possibility there's not going to be a scent for a canine, a cadaver dog to pick up. And this is the expert said this, Jeff. But I think that got pulled from the YouTube video because obviously it doesn't fit the narrative, does it? It doesn't fit the story. And all of this gate crap. I don't for a second. Who a gate expert? What? Where did that job title come from? I really don't. All of these so-called experts, I have to laugh at some of them. And then other stuff we had the I don't know if people remember, but when Sinead came home on the doorbell footage, Armchair claimed that he caught a shadow just outside the window, as if he was waiting for her. It just turned out to be a pixel. We had the body bag scandal, with the picture of the doll. And Chris took the picture of the doll wrapped up in the twister mat. That then became a body bag. Yes, a body bag. The blacked out windows on the doorbell cam when Shanann came home, and you could see the truck part there. There was a conspiracy that the windows were blacked out with a black rectangle because they were covering somebody's face. We've now had ones where now this is a distraction, what the CCTV is showing at the front. This is actually Chris distracting everybody while it all takes place out the back. Has anyone watched Chris watching? I'm sure you all have, watching Nate's CCTV crapping his pants. It's pretty obvious, right? What's going on? He knows he's on there. He knows at any moment he could be seen. It's not rocket science. You can't fake that level of fear and fright. He's practically got his hands on his head ready to be arrested. It's amazing he didn't pass out or something in that piece of footage. It's so damning. It's obvious what he's watching. He knows he's banged to rights. And yeah, and I mean, I just laugh when people say there were 4 people in the basement and I've got evidence of this. I mean, what planet are we living on? When did they get in there? When did they get in the house? When Officer Coonrod got to the house, it was all locked up. Remember, before Chris got, he checked all the doors, all the windows, everything was locked up. Back door was locked up. Everything was locked up. So let me just, I mean, this is the kind of stuff that just gets omitted out of when people talk about the case, and they don't want people to, or they want people to think that Nicole or when Kay was involved, right? So I'm just gonna read from the prison interview that Chris did in February 19 in Dodge. Of course, they went back to speak to him because 2 reasons really. Obviously, they wanted to know a bit more about it because they hadn't really, even had a chance to talk to him about what happened. Also, possibly they were going to see if he was going to roll on anybody else. And then also, they wanted to find out about Trent Bolt and Amanda McMahon, of course, who were people that were claiming that they had affairs with Chris. So they had various reasons for going back there. So this is coming from Chris himself. This is the person that he's the person that knows what went down, right? He knows he's in prison for the rest of his life. He's got no reason to protect anyone. He's got no reason to not tell anyone that anybody else was involved. Tried to blame his wife. Doesn't ever want to accept responsibility for anything. He would. I don't doubt for a minute that if he had any reason or chance to try and get out of prison or lessen his sentence or whatever, he would say, right, he's got. Why would he hold back? There's absolutely no reason whatsoever for him to just sit in prison and die in prison and you know just sit there living his life knowing that somebody else killed his family or whatever, but no, he's just going to sit in prison and take the hit for it, right? So they talked to him about his relationship with Nicole. Okay, it was Coda who obviously he's trying to find out. So it was around 1st of June that he said he met Kessinger, and that matches up with what a lot of what they said in their interviews matches up, right? They both said that they met around beginning of June. Both matches up with what they said. Can I just ask, does anybody believe? Because I think this is a red herring. I don't know how this has happened or whatever, but they show in the discovery that on NK's phone it showed that there was a search for Shanae Watts and Chris Watts like years prior, and this has kind of built up this story theory that she was stalking them. I really can't see that. I don't. It's just not. Why would somebody look up somebody a few times a few years ago if they were stalking somebody? It doesn't make sense, does it? It doesn't. There would be there would be a lot more entries, later entries, newer entries leading up to you know more like today's date. Do you know what I mean? I think that's really thrown a whole spanner in everything, and it's made it look like she's some kind of stalker who has stalked his family over the years. I think that's some kind of either admin error or there's another reason for it. And I know one of the reasons put out was that is not her. That's an Anadarko phone. They paid for her phone. That was the only phone that she uses. It was paid for by Anadarko, but she gets to use it. So is there a possibility? I know Martin Dehan has mentioned this, that possibly there were things that would have been on the SIM card or on the phone memory that possibly, due to insurance purposes years ago, maybe somebody had to search for Chris and obviously his wife, Shanann, due to insurance purposes or something like that. That just seems to make more sense to me. The whole stalker thing doesn't, because it's just too wishy-washy and too inconsistent. There's no searches even close to the tragedy or when they had their affair. Do you know what I mean? It just searches from years prior. It just doesn't make sense. And I think that has created this false kind of image of her that she's come kind of weird stalker. I don't know. I don't understand that, but it's never been clearly explained by anyone, unfortunately. I think we're never going to get an explanation, but it just doesn't make sense to me. So yeah, so he said that they worked around 1st of June 2018. He had a gas meter, didn't work. He took it to her to get fixed, and they met in the office a few times. There's nothing unusual about that. He then mentioned we moved from North Carolina, so she asked him, and he showed her pictures of his daughters, so she knew pretty much straight away that he had kids. And he said that Kessinger also saw a picture of Shanann on his lock screen. So she knew he was married and had children. I think she did. It does say here that she lied and said that she didn't know, but in her other interview, she made it clear that she did know. I mean, I think she knew all along. Um, he thought that she was trying to save face, um, and he hopes that Kessinger hasn't written to him. He didn't wear a wedding ring at work. Not that that matters because she probably knew he was married anyway. The kind of relationship went to a different level, and she talked about meeting him up after he returned from a trip to San Diego, which was around June 22nd, 26th. So their kind of relationships, what about coming up to a month old? Bearing in mind, most affairs, they reckon, on average last about 6 weeks, right? Don't forget this affair was unique in the fact that he got to spend a whole month with her, and I think this is a big reason why this happened because it was not a natural affair. Most affairs a man doesn't have 4 or 5 weeks of freedom to himself, does he, to have an affair? He didn't have to, it was easy for him to hide everything, and it was easy for the affair to become extremely intense over that time because he didn't have to worry about being caught. And that's it. And I think that probably magnified the whole affair because they basically got to spend all that time together, which probably in a normal situation, if Shanann and the children had been home, that probably could have took 6 months to a year for them to have that same level of time together and interaction. So I think that definitely is a huge part in why things just got so intense and Chris's mind just went to pulp and yeah, intensified his emotions exactly, and hers probably. And don't forget, he's telling her that they're separating. He's telling her that they're selling the house, that they're not happy. So to be fair to her, this isn't like a perfect marriage that he's in. He's telling her that they're separating. That so he all that time he's feeding her this lie. He lied to everyone, basically. He lied to everyone, right? He fooled everybody, including her, to be fair. But people don't want to hear that because it kind of lessens her evilness in their eyes, if you know what I mean. But I'm just trying to look at this intelligently, without sort of taking out the emotion of it. To me, this is a simple situation of an affair, that he had an affair and he wanted, and how they said he wanted to start a new life. So interestingly, in the interview, so this is from Chris Watts' own mouth. He wished he could talk to Kessinger one last time to apologise to her about what happened and what she went through. So that's Chris himself wanting to apologise to her about what she went through. That's Chris himself saying that. He didn't know if Kessinger had received counselling or if she had to leave the state due to the publicity of the case. Kessinger refused to speak to his attorney. What's attorney? You'd think probably if she was worried, she would have wanted to talk to his attorney, wouldn't she? Because she'd want to find out what he's been saying about her. But obviously she didn't care. He hoped that Kessinger found normalcy because Anadarko was her dream job. She said that herself in her interview. Anadarko was her dream job. So you've got to accept that she would be prepared to throw away her dream job at her age with a degree in geology we know that she had. She would just happily throw that away for some bloke that she met for 6 weeks, and she's happy to risk all that, help him murder his family, hope that everything works out and they don't get in trouble and they'll get away with it and they dance happily ever after into the distance. I just find that hard to believe to me. And I think for anyone looking at that, the motive just isn't there, is it? It's just not. She only knew him for what, 6 weeks, 2 months? Yes, Kelly, this is a idiot psychopath that wanted a clean slate. Period. It is, and this is why this case makes so much sense to me, because when you look at everything and you listen to everybody, it's plain. It just becomes pretty obvious. It's a pretty easy closed book case in my mind. So he does go on about he felt obviously wanted by Nicole, and she made him feel more in control. She listened to him, that kind of stuff. He wished that he had kept it at work and as a work relationship only. He did say that it was only because he became a field coordinator that he managed to get to see her more in the office. So it was only that kind of chance that his role changed. If that hadn't have happened, he hadn't become a field coordinator, he wouldn't have been in the office as much. So it probably wouldn't have ever happened. So yeah, it doesn't really sound like she was ever worried in her interviews. And Chris really just sounds sorry for her. He said, I quote him, he said she's a victim of all this, and he hopes that she managed to get on with her life. So I don't understand why people seem to think that he's suddenly gonna turn around in prison now, 2 years later, and claim that all these people are involved. I really, it's never going to happen in my mind. Never going to happen. Does anybody here seriously believe, and you won't be attacked if you do, but does anyone here believe that NK was directly involved? And do you think that Chris is going to suddenly come out and tell a whole different story as to what happened? Does anybody think that? No. Yeah, Betsy B's got a good point actually. It's all fantasy cooked up by Shannon. Shannon was a friend of the Watts family. I don't know. I mean, I do think there's, and it's natural because she was their son and he was their brother, that there is going to be some denial there. Thank you, Ivor. And of course they don't want the truth to be known, or that they don't want that to be the truth. They feel that there's got to be something else. Of course, and of course, any hope that they think that there may be some part of the story that's not there, and that he may have a chance of getting out. Of course, they're gonna be interested in that or jump on that. But I'd hate to think that someone's leading them out this path to think that's ever going to happen. Because legally, his time's done anyway. He only had a limited time to appeal. Anyway, his goose is well and truly cooked. People really need to start now trying to, and that's what I'm interested in, is trying to find out exactly, fit that last piece to the puzzle as to exactly why did you do it? Was it literally just the affair that you wanted to start new? It certainly looks that way. But also, how can we prevent this from happening to somebody else? Are there signs that people can see, that women can see, that maybe something isn't right. I mean, obviously things were not right in their marriage, whatever way you look at it. Something wasn't right. Something in him built up this rage and this want. I mean, he's even said now that he planned the whole thing. He had it planned for weeks, and we know that Nicole kind of planted the seed that she could give him a son, and that's her way that she wanted to try and keep him. And that's what happens in affairs. That's what women do or men do, isn't it? They'll plant seeds to try and keep get somebody to stick with them. But that's all affair related. That's all the kind of stuff that you would see in an intimate affair. But don't forget also, she a lot of the times, and it's not just her that has said this. Chris has said this too. Their stories match. When she went to the house the second time, she looked around, saw all the pictures of Chris with his family, and she said, what are you doing? Why can't you try and make this work?" She didn't feel comfortable. She she felt bad for being there, and Chris's story correlates with hers that she said all this. So she did feel bad, and she did question him on his relationship. Why couldn't he fix it? I mean, she probably did. She may have said to him, "Oh, I want you to fix it," not really meaning it fully, of course, but she did have these conversations with him many times. And as for Chris's plea, I mean, there's people saying that he was railroaded through, and he was pushed through. It was a plea deal that was secretly put together, and nobody was allowed to question the plea deal, and it was all hush hush, and you know, cover up, blah blah. But this is from his prison interview, from the official FBI record of the interview with Chris Watts in February in Dodge Prison. They questioned him about the plea, and Chris said, and I quote, "I didn't want anybody else. I didn't want them to go through this for 2 or 4 years. I didn't want my attorneys to lie for me for 2 to 4 years. They would have done anything I told them to do. I don't see how they can do that. Like, that's what attorneys do, like they take their defendant and they say, hey, like what happened? Okay, we'll go with that story." A few weeks after his arrest, he told his attorneys the truth about everything that happened. His attorneys asked him if he was ever offered a plea to plead guilty. Would he take it? He said he would plead guilty in order to end it all. His attorneys asked him about 100 times if he was sure he wanted to take the plea deal. This is a plea deal that his defense put together to try and save his life, because by default he would have been up on death row. And he said they asked him 100 times if he was sure that he wanted to take the plea deal. His attorneys never told him he had to take the plea deal, and they had a lot of creative motions to file and were ready to fight. He told his attorney he didn't want him to fight for something that the story wasn't true, because it only would have gotten worse for everyone. He does not regret taking a plea deal, but he never thought he'd be in prison for the rest of his life. He didn't want everyone to have to relive the case every day. He does not feel that he was pressured, because his defense team asked him plenty of times. I mean, how clear is that? I mean, when people say he's a massive liar and his confessions are all completely different. Apart from the obvious lie, which he told at the start, which he has admitted in his confession, the only reason he went with the fact that the only reason he went with the story that Shanann killed the children and then he killed Shanann was because it was given to him by the idea was given to him by the FBI agents, by Tammy. That's the only reason he went with that story. And when you watch his interview, you can kind of see that. You can see he picks up on that. His mind, you can almost see his mind ticking over. And he thinks, oh yeah, I may get reduced responsibility if I follow this. And I can see why they do that. But maybe that's the problem. Do you think that technique, that read technique, that made him, put that confession together was where Shanann was involved? Do you think maybe that's part of the problem? Do you think that's a technique that shouldn't be used? Do you think that created the whole issue of Shanann being, attacked and people like Mensa, jumped on that and have gone with that? Maybe that's a problem. Maybe they shouldn't do that technique anymore. Maybe they shouldn't give that option. As I say, I can understand why they do it, but it created that whole ball of hate, didn't it, towards Shanann and her family by people saying that, she murdered the children and he only murdered her because she'd done that. Yes, it did. It got him to admit that he killed Shanann. Obviously, that's why they do it, isn't it? They kind of dangle this carrot of reduced culpability. But obviously, it created that whole social media storm of people picking up on that as the truth. I mean, nobody believed it, did they? Nobody believed it. Shanann never needed vindicating, ever, from day one. I don't think anyone, apart from a few evil idiots, thought that she would have done anything to those children. Watching her videos and everything, it seriously doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that she wouldn't do anything to harm those kids. And it was pretty clear that he was just picking up on that whole story, right? But yeah, apart from that, obviously you then got his second confession, which to me makes sense. I do think that there is a shadow there, and I do think that you can see other stuff on that footage that matches up with his story. And then kind of with his what he told Sherilyn, he's basically just added in stuff that he didn't say initially. So he hasn't kind of in effect lied apart from the massive lie, which is obviously his first confession, but kind of from then on, for me, what he said, and I can't think of any reason why he would make up that story that he did if it wasn't true. And then what he said, as I say, to Cadle, if anyone's read Letters from Christopher, of course it was all out in the Daily Mail and everything as well. He just kind of added to that bits that he'd omitted. We obviously was afraid to say in the beginning. But ultimately, he killed his family. He put them in whichever way you look at it. He killed his family. He put them in his truck. He took them to his work site, and he tried to hide them. He tried to hide their bodies. But because it was so poorly executed, I mean, and that's the other thing that blows my mind when people think this was some kind of plan. Look at how many stupid mistakes were made. He threw the sheets away and left them in the bin, for Christ's sake. He left the sheet out of the site. How can this be a well orchestrated plan? It's ridiculous. He got caught because he was too stupid. So I really don't understand these people that think it was some kind of plot between all these people. It wasn't planned at all, exactly. And that shows, doesn't it, Claire? It shows in the whole story that it wasn't planned. And that's why he got caught so quick. Because he was so stupid. Yeah, so the shadows, I know some people don't and some people do. I mean, I know that they originally came out on Reddit. They were around when that video was released. I didn't see it at the time, but there's Reddit posts that, coincidentally happened to be kind of a couple of days before Armchair blasted onto YouTube and tried to claim it as his own. Funnily enough, a few days before, on Reddit, it's all over there under the Stay Informed video who put the CCTV up. People were all commenting about the shadow under the truck and what have you. And I know some people can see it now, some people can't see it now, some people do believe it, some don't. In my in my opinion, I do see it. I do, and it does make sense to me. And his story kind of makes sense to me. And I hate to say it, but I can also on that video see him dragging something because he's walking backwards. There's only one reason really why you would walk backwards, and that is if you are dragging something. And obviously, from what his story that he's told, we know that he is dragging Jinan out. To me, anyway, in my mind, and then seeing the shadow as well. I don't know. I just think, why would he make this story up? What kind of purpose does it serve him to make up this horrendous story that he's made up? B said, "Mum, yeah, you've not seen it. You have to watch it quite close." I mean, I don't know. I'm only saying what I see, but yeah, he likes to play games. That is, of course, a possibility. But I think anyone who's kind of, watches people or watches is new to the case and they watch somebody like Armchair who's doing a complete disservice to the whole case and the whole facts of the case, and just this agenda to have somebody else involved. It's all to try and make himself more interesting, to make him think that he has somebody or has something that nobody else has. That's all it is. That's what it is, basically. And that's why I titled this video Gaslighting, because that's what it is. It's gaslighting the case by trying to pretend to people that you know something that others don't. And it's just infuriating that people believe this crap. And he is, yeah, born scammer. And it is infuriating when you see it happening. But I have to call him out because because it annoys me that people are going to see this and think this is what's happened, think this is what's actually happened, and then slowly over time, like everybody does, they find out that actually it's just a lot of lies and it's just a lot of bullshit, and then slowly they will drift away from that channel. They may drift over here, but that case has then been messed up for them because their head's so full of crap, and it just causes people confusion, and it just causes It's disrespectful to the families. It's disrespectful to the people that actually were involved in that case, to law enforcement. It's it's just wrong in every way. Yeah, and thank you, Rose. I do hope other creators do come out and say, look, this is one of the biggest cases in America in recent history, and it's just being shat over by this idiot on YouTube who's just creating this complete fabricated nonsense about the case, pulling people in, confusing them, getting them all riled up, thinking that there's somebody else involved, riling people up towards NK, riling up this hate towards her, which then riles up this kind of toxicity in the whole bubble of YouTube that we're in. And people say, oh, well, why are you picking on an old man? Why can't you leave him alone? It's like we're not hating on him. We've never hated. We're not issuing him all these imaginary death threats that he claims and what have you. We're just saying, hang on a minute, look, that's not true what you're saying. That's not true. That's not right. And like I said earlier, what really riles me up is when people say, oh, we want real justice. We want real justice for Shanann and her babies. It's like, what are you talking about? That really just gets my back up. The family of Shanann's family have got justice. They don't believe anybody else is involved. They've made that perfectly clear. They don't think they don't believe that Nicole was involved. They don't believe that anybody else was involved. And they just want people to stick to the facts. How difficult is that? And that's the other thing. They've never said, and we have never said to anybody, don't talk about the case. You can't talk about the case. Never said that, ever. All we've said is what Shanann's family have said is just please stick to the facts. Please just tell the truth of what happened. But no, can't do that because he has to have this kind of mystery surrounding it. It has to have this edge of, oh, look, I know something else, and that's actually not what happened. It's you're just being fed this narrative, and it's all a cover up. And I mean, I didn't know him from the McCann case, didn't know him then, but I've since, discovered that he did the same thing with that. Stole people's work, disrupted a whole load of people on Facebook, upset a whole load of people on Facebook because he stole their work that they'd spent years researching and recording on the Madeleine McCann case. Stole all that and tried to pass it all off as his own. I mean, how many times have we seen that? And then, of course, so he goes over onto YouTube and just doing the same kind of thing. I'm just going to pop, if anyone wants to come on, I'm just going to pop a link in the chat. I'll stay on a little bit longer. I'm just going to, if anybody wants to come on, please do. If you want to have your say about what's going on. As I say, this new Netflix documentary comes out on September 30th. It's Shanann's story, if you like, from what I gather. It's going to use a lot of Facebook clips and what have you. And it's her kind of story, really, which hasn't been done yet, so that's good. But of course, then you'll have idiots like Armchair saying that that's not actually what happened, that's just a false narrative that you've all been fed. It's going to make you cry, yeah. It's going to be heart-wrenching, obviously. It's going to be heart-wrenching. It's been such an emotion, such a massive case, isn't it, on YouTube, and such an emotional case for everybody. But it's nice to know that, Shanann's family are happy with it. I haven't got Netflix. How else can I watch it? Yeah, I'm not sure if don't know if anyone. I don't know if it might be on Facebook. I'll have a look. If I see anywhere, if I see it posted anywhere, I'll let you know. But it comes at 8 a.m. on in the UK. Sorry, I think it's. I'm not sure it starts in California because the Netflix headquarters are in California, I believe. So I think that's where it starts. So I'm just making sure that's not. And then it goes worldwide, different time zones. So what do y'all think of? What do y'all think of? Oh, so what do y'all think of? Hello,
Hello?
hello, Kelly. How are you? I can hear myself.
Hold on, I'm gonna mute it. I muted it. Is that better?
That's better.
Better?
That's better. How are
Okay.
you? I know you've not been too well. Are you feeling better?
I no. I'm not feeling better, but today is just a better day
Hmm.
than usual.
Hmm.
So I'll put that.
That's good.
Um, I wanted to jump on because something you said earlier about CW, how can we prevent this from happening in the future? You know,
Hmm.
what can we learn from these type of things or this story?
Yeah.
Um, I wanted to bring up the fact that there were a couple red flags that were shown. However, you don't realize that it was as serious. And I know that this was brought up before, but when Shanann was in North Carolina, I don't know if everybody remembers, but he was very cold to her.
Right.
And he had no care in the world about what was happening with her. And that to and I'm just going to say that to Mama Sandy was a huge red flag, even though nobody would have thought it would have gotten to this point.
Hmm.
That was something that she said, now looking back, that was the a big thing. So one thing that Mama Sandy wanted me to bring to the forefront is that if a spouse or partner seems to be irritated with you or seems to be pulled away, doesn't want to be involved, then to kind of heed that warning and maybe go visit some friends, go stay with your parents,
Mm.
get away for a little bit and just kind of take a break.
Yeah. Um,
That was one thing that they wish Shanann had just stayed back because there was an instinct feeling of something's not right.
mm. Of course, as we know, he was planning. He'd already made his mind up, I think, at that time, hadn't he?
Yes. But here's the thing, if she had stayed in North Carolina, that would have thrown everything off.
Yes,
Obviously, that would have ruined everything for him.
absolutely.
And and that was just one thing I because it's very important for us to remember that Shanann wanted to help people, and her focus was nothing but positive, good things. So for now, going forward, and I'm going to talk about this tonight, but we're going to we want everybody to know and get out of these situations. So to know the signs, get out, heed the warnings. Maybe stay with a parent or a sibling or a friend. Maybe even go to a hotel night for one night. If you're noticing anything like that, just get away. And that is one of the signs.
Mm.
There were others that he was just very distant during the whole time that she was gone. She knew, she felt deep down inside, she knew that she was carrying the load for everybody. She knew it, she felt it.
Mm.
When you start feeling those types of things, and when somebody is being with the lack of communication as he was, that's another red flag to pay attention to.
Definitely. Let me just bring Paula in. I just see Paula's called in. Hi,
Hi,
Paula.
Paula. Oh, it's
Hello. Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yes. What's inspired you to ring in?
Well, I think, when uh, just coming on the back of what Kelly's saying, I completely agree with that. I'm trying to look at the reason why Chris may have got the mindset that he had. And it is really my opinion. But like I put in chat earlier, so Chris has lived his life in the way that he has, and we all know that, we all know what it was and what it is. He was quiet, he was timid, he was this, he was that, he was controlled, he was, he did what he was told. I think everybody, probably agrees with that. And if they don't, then, that's okay. And I think when he met up with NK, he got a taste of something he'd never had before. And I think that when you're in that situation, and when you're in that moment, oh God, how can I put this? You or whoever, gets overwhelmed by it's not love, it's lust. It's lust. That's what it is. There's no love involved. You might love somebody, but you're not in love with them. They are two different things, lust and love. And I think he was lusting after Nicole. And I think he got so infatuated that he just didn't care. He just didn't give a damn anymore. And I think his whole personality changed. And I know from experience, not from my part, but from somebody else's part, that can happen. And I think he literally got involved with Nicole, and as the time went by, he completely changed his persona and really didn't give a damn. And I think that's why he went out and had those, salmon meals, and put it on the credit card and not the vouchers or whatever he did previously. And I don't think he gave a damn at that point. I don't think he cared. Who knew? Including Shanann, sadly. I almost think he wanted to be found out. I think he wanted Shanann to bring it to the forefront and say, look, are you having an affair? Because I think he was the coward. I don't think he was ever going to admit it, because of his personality. But at the point of being that much in love, he didn't care enough for Shanann to bring it to, and that's why I think he did what he did that night at the Lazy Dog. I think he wanted her. I think he wanted her to bring that out, and I think he wanted her to bring it to the forefront so that he didn't have to. And then all he had to do was respond to it, as opposed to bring it to the table. You might think I'm crazy, but that's my opinion.
No, I actually agree 100% with you. I think he knew exactly what he was doing by paying for that meal, on the credit card. I think he knew that that was gonna be the kind of catalyst for
Yeah.
everything to happen. And even during, he said, even when during they had their fight that night, he still refused to admit to her
Yeah, because
about the
he's a
affair.
coward.
He was scared. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, he's a coward. And I think he knew that Shanann was a very strong person. She was in charge of the finances. He knew that she would spot that on the credit, debit card, whatever. And I think he wanted her to, because he needed her to take the lead on the separation, because he couldn't. And he needed her to say, what the hell's going on? Because he couldn't actually tell her to her face, because he was a bit of a coward, in my opinion. And she did. And then that gave him the reins to respond.
I agree. I agree. How do you feel, Kelly? Do you feel that's accurate?
It's a
In
great observation
Mhm.
and it's perfect. Um, Also, I want everyone to remember that Chris never dated anybody properly.
Yeah.
I say properly because if you think about it, he really didn't have or maintain relationships. So it's almost like he was a teenager who was thrown into a life as an adult, but he was really inside this immature child that didn't have a whole lot to offer. He didn't have, experiences from prior. And I'm not saying that that's a necessary, thing that has
Oh
to
my gosh,
be.
I think it is. My
But
ex-husband.
right, that's what I'm saying. Like think about it. What was that proper relationship for him? Did he bring to the table for Shanann? He didn't bring anything. He brought like, I'm here, you know, teach me whatever. He didn't know how to communicate. He couldn't connect feelings to thought. He knew someone would be sad or happy. Oh, if I do this, that person is happy, therefore I look good. He couldn't connect the two emotionally. That is who he is. And the thing is that she probably kind of knew inside that I think how she looked at it is he was a project almost like, I gotta take care of this. I gotta do this. I gotta do that. But in reality, he was just a soulless shell. And
It's ironic that you say that, because I don't like to compare, but my ex-husband, um, like, I've got 4 children. They're all grown up. My youngest is 25. My eldest is 34. And I, it, oh my gosh, my ex-husband, I must have been having a midlife crisis, because he was a lot younger than me, like 10, 12 years younger than me. And he was like, I didn't even think he could tie his own shoelaces. And he didn't have any emotion. He didn't have any experience. He didn't have any wisdom. He didn't know how to go on in the world. There was nothing. It was the first experience I've had of somebody that has a blank canvas. He was blank. There was nothing there upstairs, nothing at all. And I think, and I recognised that very early on, and I absolutely hold my hands up and say that I ended up marrying him. God knows why. It lasted 7 years, but I knew before I married him that there was something wrong. And he was he was a mummy's boy. He needed to consult his mum through everything, whereas in my previous relationship, we consult each other and then we distribute it to the wider audience if need be. But no, he would not consult with me. He had to go to his mum first. And this is what I think Chris Watts did. I don't think he knew how to communicate, and I don't think he knew how to have that connection with the person he was with, because I think, if you want me to be honest, I think the connection was with the mother. And I will stand by that, because when I look at Chris Watts and I look back on all the interviews with his mum, with his dad, with the Rusex, with him, with everybody, he is literally a flipping clone of my ex. So all I can say is you can't help somebody like that. And when I look at my ex now, and we've been split up like 5 years, he's still living with his mum and he's like in his 40s. That's the way it's going to be. And I think that's the way it will always be for Chris. I don't think he's ever broke those apron strings. I don't think he ever will. And I think that was a problem in the marriage. And when I look at Shanann, I think, well, I tried to put him on this straight and narrow, get him to grow up, get him to accept the responsibilities. But you can't do that with somebody that isn't in that mindset. And I honestly think that when Chris met Nicole NK, that he was lost in the moment. He had several weeks, and some people can fall in love in a day. He had like nearly 5-6 weeks to do that. And he was absolutely besotted. And I think he just thought, oh my God, I found something that isn't controlling, not like my mum, my wife. I found somebody that doesn't have any baggage like my children. And that is, I hate to say that, but that's the way I think he may have felt. And he's thinking, oh my gosh, I could have this, 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 and this without this, 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 and this. And that's why I think he did what he did. And I don't think he meant to. I do believe he did it on his own. I don't think there was anybody involved. And I think he did it for all of those reasons above.
I agree. I agree pretty much with everything you said. What about you, Kelly?
Yes. The thing I noticed as well, and to piggyback off of Paula, is that if you notice, Chris did not have the ability to make decisions, because if you kind of watch the whole dynamic, even from just the videos, it was almost like he didn't care. He was just kind of there. And the mother situation, the fact that Cindy did not like Shanann from day one. She didn't give her a chance. So what does that do? It brings on further issues. It brings on contention in the marriage.
Absolutely. And that's why I think that he personally, and I know I'm not going to repeat my past, but I know from personal experience that he didn't make that decision on his own. So whether he spoke to somebody, whether that be his mum, I don't think it was NK. In my opinion, I don't think it was NK. I think he went back to the parents because that's his safe haven, away from the wife, from the mistress. So I think he went back to his roots, and I think he spoke to his roots, and I think they steered him or gave him the decision or steered him towards the decision. That's my opinion, because I don't think he made this opinion on his own, 150% in my opinion.
The other thing I think about the affair was it was just so perfectly convenient, wasn't it? I mean, he got to spend practically every night of July, a whole month, sleeping over at her place. And that would never happen in most other circumstances, would it? A married man with a family, if he's having an affair, normally he's going to be skulking around after work or whatever, and it's going to be hard for him to have that affair. It was just far too easy and convenient for it all to happen and for it all to snowball. So that's why I think it was just almost like a perfect storm. that just
Well,
Exactly.
and
brewed
he's
out
a
of control.
psychopath, so don't forget that they are just objects to him. So it was
Yeah.
very easy for him to come to a decision within 6 weeks.
It's almost like a commodity, isn't it? You
It's
know,
almost
because
like what?
a
I'm sorry.
psychopath or a narcissist, they take what they can from whom they are with. And
Yes,
when that resource has gone, they move to the next one. So in my
correct.
opinion, Chris moved from Shanann because she was not on the scene. She wasn't in the picture. She'd gone off to wherever she went. I can't remember where she went. Oh my God, I feel so bad.
North Carolina, wasn't it, for
North
6 weeks?
Carolina, yeah, exactly. So it's a little bit of out of sight, out of mind. So when he got thrown in with Nicole, he could literally throw his whole self into that because he didn't have the baggage, he didn't have the responsibility, he didn't have anything throughout those 6 weeks other than her. And he could literally throw his whole self into her. And I think he absolutely did that, and he was literally overwhelmed, and had something he'd never had in his life before. That's I just people say there's a bigger picture. I don't think there is. I think it was just lust with Nicole. He had all that time to go and express himself without all of the responsibility, mortgage, bills, kids, wife.
Yep.
And he threw himself in wholeheartedly, and got consumed.
Yes. Yes. And again, we're going to go to the fact that he was never really experienced with relationships or how
Yeah.
to treat another human being and to, get to know them. And what he did was just kind of go along with the flow. He was a yes man. And I just saw Aussie said that, Aussie Life. Yeah, he was a yes man. He was a people pleaser. And he only did that to make himself, everything was to benefit himself. It was never to benefit his wife, his children, nor his family. And
Yeah, that's absolutely right, Kelly. And I hate to compare, but when I think of my ex, he was an absolute. It's all for me. Drink what I like, eat what I like, sleep what I like, wear what I like, go to restaurants what I like. It never ever came around to me, and that might be the same for Shanann. And she was a very strong person. I'm a very strong person, but you can get chipped down over a period of time. And the reason my ex was like that is because he had a very narcissistic mum. And I'm not going to lie, she won, because I couldn't do it anymore. Even though I come from a very strong female background, I was done with it. But not all people are. And that came from his mum. And he didn't know how to do anything, communicate, tie shoelaces. He didn't know how to speak to me. He didn't know how to respect. He did all the things that Chris Watts did. That rings true to me. So I completely understand that. And the
that's
trouble,
why I want us to bring forth the red flags and Paula, you would be a perfect person to help with this.
my
And
God,
I'm going to
could,
say this, and I want to just make this comment. Again, Mama Sandy is, and I'm going to make this, announcement that she really, really does want us to focus on the victims,
right.
and of course, get out of this drama of, the gaslighter, right? So I think that it would be beneficial, because this is what Mama Sandy said, is that we really bring forth the hidden red flags that this loser held, and that unfortunately our Shanann missed, only because I mean, who would have thought anybody would have been capable of doing what he did? Nobody would have thought that. Every single person was like, what? That knew him, right?
Let me tell you, Kelly, that my ex, everybody, and still does, think that he is the grass that God walked on. But let me tell you, if somebody told me in 6 months from now that he committed the same crime, I would believe it. For all the reasons that, and for all, I'm not going to do this today because I don't need to, but I can tell you that he is a clone. So I completely understand why Chris Watts has done what he's done, and why the person that lived with them didn't pick up.
It's interesting, isn't it? It's fascinating to me that you yourself and probably a lot of other people recognise a Chris Watts in their life or in their past life. And the fact that you said you would believe it if he did something like that.
Yeah.
I find that
Now
very
I would.
interesting. Mm.
Now I would, and we're talking 5 years later. Obviously, at the time, I would. It's a great quote when people say, "You only know what's happening when you look from the outside in." I was from the inside out. So you have to get out to look in.
Mm. It's a lot clearer then, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I can completely relate to Shanann. I can completely relate to Chris, because I now know, after all these years, what he was, what he is, and what he'll always be.
Mm. And I think
So,
that's the most important thing that people should be looking at now is, what
yeah.
can we learn from this tragedy, if anything? What positive can we make out of it? And that is to try and recognize, and like Kelly was saying, possibly start making people aware of maybe red flags that they wouldn't have been aware of previously.
I knew the triggers, I knew the red flags, and I learnt them early on within 7 years of marriage. Oh God, I married him. Jeez. But I did learn those red flags very early on. I don't know whether I was having some sort of midlife crisis, because I've always been a very strong person, a very strong female, a very strong. Nobody pulls the wool over my eyes. But he slowly did.
Mm, interesting. Well,
Yes, and I think that from what we can learn, especially from this situation, in a lot of ways, this is another thing I thought about, is communication. And I know that sounds weird, but the fact that Chris could not communicate to Shanann whatsoever, that is something scary. And that's why I want people to, that's another thing. If you have a spouse or a partner that you really can't communicate that well with, it's not worth it, because that's another red flag, whether it be turn into something bad, or, like a murder, or just something as simple as, they're a jerk, right? So with people, when we're in relationships and the communication is not good, that's where we have to be cautious. Because what I noticed is that there was no communication between him and Shanann whatsoever. And I believe that she probably many times sat down and tried to talk to him. Hey, let's talk, that kind of thing, open up. But he didn't have anything to say.
mm,
Yeah, like this and that. That's it. I like cars. It's it's very simple.
it must have been worrying for her when she went to North Carolina. She was there for what, 4 or 5 weeks without Chris. And for him to then turn up after all that time and act very cold towards her, which I believe he did. And of course, we now know from what he said that he had already planned what he was doing. Then he tried to poison her and kill the baby with the oxy, which we know he searched for on Google, so that backs that up. So why,
Right.
after all that time, you would think, you would hope that your husband would kind of show you some affection and would have missed you during that time. So for him to turn up and be extremely cold straight away towards her, that
Mm-hmm.
must have been. And like you said Sandy found that odd. I know Frankie did mention it. He found it odd, and I think Frank said that he thought Chris was acting odd.
Yep.
So I
They
think like,
noticed it. We if you read the discovery, they all said it. They noticed he was cold. He was weird. He was it was a lack of care, a lack of love. And that right there, it triggered Mama Sandy to even try to get Shanann to stay because she felt weird about it. And it's sad because they didn't know what, how could he possibly have gone this far. So it's still very hurtful. That's a betrayal. But I do want to mention also, if everybody remembers, that Shanann, he was torturing Shanann for weeks over the phone via text. I mean, we all saw a couple pictures of that she sent and texted over, or there was that one photo that just breaks my heart when I see her sad little face. And she sent her friend a message and she was telling her friend how, this is what I look like, this is what I'm going through, kind of thing. And it broke my heart for her because what he was doing was he was mentally breaking her. He was emotionally breaking her. It's not like and again I want to say it's not like he was out to hurt her. He is just so selfish. It's all about him. He can't see her as a person. So to him he was just, nah, I'll give her some breadcrumbs to keep her around.
mm, like he said himself, he was creating walls. He was distancing himself. Whether in his mind it was he was trying to make himself easier on himself because he obviously knew what he was planning to do. So he probably wanted to build these walls and distance himself from her. And but like you say, he was also at the same time sort of just
Right. I am
running her
not
down.
diagnosing anyone. Somebody in the chat is like, oh, so she's diagnosing him right away. No, I never
Uh,
diagnosed him.
just
I'm
ignore
not a
them.
doctor. I never claimed to be.
Just ignore them.
Um, he has a lot of, and I agree, Betsy. I think he is a cluster C possible personality. So I mean, he has all the signs are there, and just the fact that he's sitting in prison for murder, yes, narcissist murder. When it comes to something like this, that's it. He's a narcissist, plain and simple. He murdered his children and his wife for no reason. No reason. It's not like he was like, oh, they're demons. I got to send them to heaven. You know what I mean? It's not like it was a crazy thought process. His was, I know I'm doing this and this is what I'm doing.
Definitely.
The children did nothing. I'm not saying Shanann, but you know what I mean? The children did nothing to deserve what that evil man did.
Very true. I don't understand. I never will understand why he felt that he had to hurt the children, obviously, let alone his wife. But the children would just never make sense to me, ever. Is there anything you wanted to add, Paula, before I pull the plug in a moment? Is she still there? Hello? Can you still hear me, Kelly?
I can hear you.
Yeah.
Paula, are you still there? Your mic is mute.
Must be on mute. See if I can.
Okay, can you
Oh, there
hear
you go.
me?
Yeah,
Yeah,
there she is.
that's all right.
Okay, so what I was going to say is at the point that Chris didn't care, we all have to realise that he didn't care long before the point of we realising. Because somebody in that mindset, they don't care from the beginning. They don't show it, but their emotions aren't like yours or mine. Their emotions are all for themselves. So if you're giving them something that they like, then they're going to stay. The minute you retract any of that, they're gonna pull back and think, oh, I need to go on to the next one and the next one and the next one. And I think, oh God, I just think Chris Watts was always that way. I don't care what anyone says. I think he was always the way he is. Maybe parents and people around him didn't see it, but it was always there. And I think that he got triggered by 6 weeks of being absent from the missus and the kids and the mortgage and the bills. He got into something that was lustful, not love, but was lustful. And he was thinking, this is great. I can't tie my shoelaces, but this, this feels great to me, so I'm going to go with it. And so I think he just latched on to somebody else. And that's what narcissists do. When somebody doesn't give them what they want, they move on to the next. It's like a cycle. And I think he moved on to the next. And I think
he found another fresh slate. Now, I want to also just remind people also that NK was a little controlling as well. So he was picking another woman. She had that personality, even though she liked some of the same things that he did. And yeah, she made him feel a little more manly, whatever.
She had the traits of his wife and his mum.
Well, she had a different trait. She had a manipulative trait. And she was able to push a certain buttons because, of course, he was obsessed with her. Because, again, he never been with any other woman, pretty much.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah.
Thing is, I think he got so all consumed that anything else went out the window. And sadly, that included his children. And I just think that people like that, they're so self-centered, so self-serving that they can't see the bigger picture. And it will only be now, after the event, that maybe Chris does see the bigger picture. And maybe he is sitting in his cell thinking, oh my gosh. But then, of course, he turned to the Bible again. People think he's only just turned to it. No, that's always been in his life. I think he's just reverted to it. And I think returning to that has given him some peace and solitude, which I hate. But that's where I think he is today. I think I honestly believe he's faced his demons in his mind because of the Bible. And I think he will just plod on. And it grieves me to say that, but that's where I think he is today.
I know, sort of from what I know he sort of started to write a journal because I know his family wanted to try and get him to sort of unlock the pieces in his mind, if you like. I think they were obviously struggling with trying to work out how he could have possibly done this. And
narcissists will never can put out there what's really going on because they're very secretive people.
But I think he's a lot of it. He just doesn't want to face up to, and he won't. Some people argue that due to trauma, it can sometimes kind of erase or block parts of your memory. Possibility, or maybe he just does not want to remember, what he did. But I think, he probably just doesn't want to think about it. He probably just is trying to just blot it out and
I actually believe he completely remembers what happened.
Oh yeah,
Me
really
too.
he does, yeah.
What he did.
I mean, it's a denial to the self in a way to
Absolutely.
try to protect the brain in some way, but overall, he knows what happened. He knows he planned it, everything.
He does. He does.
Yeah.
He
I
knows
agree.
that he was going to do this. And the story that him explaining how Bella fought for her life, that you cannot make up.
No, that blows my mind why people think this confession he's made this up. Why would you make something like that up? You wouldn't, would you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was sicker than what he could have come up with, to be honest.
Yeah, to actually go through that process and the the details. He could. I think that's the truth, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, we're all on the same page with this. We all know what we're dealing with. And we all know that this person did what he did, and he's behind bars where he belongs.
Exactly, Kelly.
Exactly. And it's just a case of what, if anything, we can learn from it, and to kind of put the true story out there, and not have people make up all this stuff. This pitchfork fight for NK's got to stop. I find it quite tiresome and pathetic,
Very
really, that people are
tiresome.
doing this.
You will never stop AD. And I come to that conclusion probably earlier today when I've seen a couple of other channels go down. And I think we all know that the biggest perpetrator on YouTube is AD. And I think that he has killed the true crime community. And that absolutely breaks my heart. But he has. I've been
He
here.
has some help. There's some others that are not affiliated with him that are a little upsetting as well.
Yes,
but you're right. You're right.
I do agree with you, Kelly. But I do agree with you.
Mess.
No, he has killed this community dead, as far as I'm concerned, and it grieves me, and I don't know what else to do. I don't know who else to talk to. I don't know. I mean, I've been like plugging this since the day he came on to YouTube. I'm not talking Madeleine McCann. I'm talking when he first picked up the Watts case, and I am literally at my wit's end with how to tackle this, because if he doesn't happen on this community, then this community will be fine. But for the want of trying, everybody and his flipping mother has tried to stop this, hate and lies, abuse. What on earth do we do now?
If only I knew the answer to that question. I don't know.
Well, we're going to keep going. We're going to keep going. We're going to fight for this Shanann's law. We are also going to start talking more about Nico's law. And because if you noticed, what did we just talk? What did you just release, Chris, earlier today? What did you just release? The bad, horrific news
about Cassandra Cantrell. Yeah. Of course, she was
that
pregnant.
That is where Nico's law also rings true.
Yeah, poor Cassandra. That's been tragic news today.
That's horrific.
Yeah.
And this is the type of stuff that I originally focused on before. And I lost track of that because of the because I do have a fighting nature and I fight back all the time, and I do it sometimes in a way that is not becoming. So I'm only human and I'm growing just like all of everybody here. And we have bigger fish to fry, and he is going to take himself down. We just have to let it roll. Let it happen.
It's a lot. Maybe you're saying that if you give yourself enough rope, you'll hang yourself.
Yes. And he's doing that.
Good.
You can
Good, because I'm literally at my wit's end.
you can use your platform, Kelly, to obviously keep going with the law and everything. And
Yes. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that.
yeah, no, I can always try and keep the truth out there and call him out when he's continuing to peddle his stuff.
I just want other people to know. I want us all to be, have a healthier outlook, because you guys saw me yesterday and I was livid. Like, I would have flown to England if I could have. I was just so mad. Not I wouldn't have done anything really bad, but you know what I mean? I was just that mad. But and I'm glad that you're here to call him out, because we need to. I have to focus on the victims, and I need to let other people, such as Team Phoenix here, help fight with the truth.
Yeah, Team Phoenix do an absolute amazing job. I mean,
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in the UK too, and I honestly don't know what else to do. And if I could do it, I would do it. It's so difficult.
It is. And YouTube have been no help. They've never ever been of any help to us, really. It's
no.
I don't
well,
understand.
if I do fly out there, I'm coming to visit you guys.
Well, that would be awesome.
Yeah, we'll have a meet and greet.
We will.
Right. Okay. Well, thanks for calling in, both. It's been really good to chat, and it's been
for having me on.
very interesting.
I'll be on later. I don't know if you're coming on later.
Oh yeah. What time's your
Well, mine is probably really late for everybody in the UK. It's I guess midnight. What, 12:15?
Okay. Which is how many hours from now?
Hour and a half.
Yeah, I'm at 4:36 over here, Central Standard Time. Outback is here. We can start talking. We're leaving now, Outback.
So yeah,
okay, look out for so much for having us. I'll speak to you soon.
Yeah, thanks, Paula.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Oh, they've gone. Everybody's gone. Hang on, I still see Paula. And sorry guys, 1 second. Paula's stuck in the room. Well, I hope you found that. I hope you found that interesting, guys. Yeah, I did think it was. I think it was disappointing that Armchair couldn't just let the family have this Netflix documentary. You had to. He just had to stick his oar in, didn't he? And kind of accuse the family of working behind the scenes, telling people to stop talking about the case while they've been talking to Netflix, and make it seem like there's something underhanded and wrong going on, and the fact that they might be getting paid money for it. Even though it's their family and it's their daughter's story that's going out. I was disappointed with that. Very disappointed, but there you go. Yeah, and he wasn't happy because he wasn't asked for his input. Yeah, it should be it should be a good documentary, and it'll be Shanann's story, which we haven't really hasn't really been put out there yet, as it is. It's been more about all the horrible side of it. So hopefully they're going to focus less on that and focus more on this was Shanann, this was who she was, this was her life, this was her story, and that's what people obviously really want to see now, I think. So thanks for everyone for coming in. I hope you found it interesting in some way. Thank you, Kimberly, for looking after everyone, and Firefly earlier on. Thank you to everyone who donated. It's much appreciated. And yeah, I think it's very interesting. What can we learn? What can we learn now, 2 years later? What can we learn from this case? Kelly brought up an interesting point about us looking now for red flags, and certainly coming from Sandy, from Shanann's mum, red flags that maybe they wish they'd seen, or looking back, that at points in the timeline that they wish that they had said something, or spoke to Shanann about certain things. And of course, that's absolutely invaluable insight that they'll be able to offer in that respect. And let's just try and keep the truth of this story out there. Not, it's infuriating to me that this whole case has turned into such a shit show, basically, on YouTube and it is down to mainly Armchair, because he's the one that's been putting out most of the ridiculous theories. There are other channels, there are smaller channels, but obviously he's the bigger channel. And it's just a shame that people are going to watch this Netflix documentary and then the next day be told that that isn't actually what happened and it's all a big cover up. I just find that absolutely ridiculous. I find it extremely disrespectful for everybody. But there you go. What can you do without being called and labelled a hater and just picking on an old man? But thanks everyone. I am going to jump off. So enjoy the rest of your evening or morning or day or whatever it is. As I say, I will be putting together a video of some more details about dear Cassandra. If anyone hasn't heard, Cassandra Cantrell's body was found. It was found at the bottom of a kind of cliffside, not too far from where her phone was last located, and her ex-boyfriend has been arrested on suspicion of murder, which everybody suspected him from day one. Obviously, they were putting together a case. They've got a lot of digital evidence against him. So hopefully he's going to burn in hell. But as I say, I will be putting together a video of the details of that. So look out for that. Any news on Suzanne Murphy? No, I don't know. I've not heard of that one. Not heard of that case. But yeah, great chat, everyone. Thanks for being such a great group in the chat, and look to speak to you all again soon. So take care and look after yourself, and look after your friends, and look after your family.